everybody, this is Max Farrow. This is DexFXMarkets.com. In this session, we're going to learn about one of the first strategies you're going to be using when you first start out. We call this the first over-under. Now, what this means is in our system, you know the three systems that we're using in here. We're using support and resistance. We're using a moving average set to 50, which you can see up here. And we're using our arrow system through our Dex Atomic system. Now, what the arrows are an event that happens within price over a period of time, and the arrow tells us to signify, hey, there might be a possible buy or sell opportunity. Pay attention. Now, it doesn't make it absolute, but what it does say is that check validation to see if this sets up. Give yourself a check mark if it's above or below the MA, depending on the direction, and then start validating the actual signal. In any strategy, what you do is you set yourself a set of rules, and those rules are followed throughout the process to make sure that you're getting into the right trade. Now, not only are you going to have to find out if the system is validated, if the signal is validated for you, but also if there's an availability for a good price over at Nadex. Now, remember, we're never getting directly into the market. So if the prices already have money on them over at Nadex at that point, you have to kind of evaluate whether or not the trade is going against itself or it's validating already, especially in times when there's heavy news. Okay, using the TradingView system, you have a great set of tools to know what things are coming up. You'll actually see see down here, like this little news button. It'll tell you what time news is coming up. So as long as there's no news buttons down here or what have you, you might be okay with that point if you're doing news avoidance. All right, so let's talk about first over or under. Now, the price being above or below the moving average. We're using the moving average as the potential graph here. Okay, now in future, when I'm going to show you how to use your gain box to also validate, or even a simple box to validate, so we don't confuse the process, I'm going to show you how to validate whether or not if the signal is very close to the MA, okay, or way into the MA, too far down the line, okay, and which ones to take. We say to take the first one over or under the moving average. Now, technically, this particular trade, because the arrow appears on this bar, but actually it's the open of the trade. So wherever the open is of the bar with the signal on it. So here's the close and here's the open. The open is technically under the moving average. So check one in the box. Okay, in the second part of validation, where we use our box method to check the process, we're looking for the very first one over. Okay, so could this one be considered the first one under the price? Well, anytime price travels above and closes above the moving average, it sort of washes things out. So it comes back down and creates the first signal over right here. Now, this is usually pretty good, and you could use this as a signal, and you're going to have a success rate. But I use another couple of things to validate as we go. We use one, the box method. Two, we look at the different levels that we have availability. And then three, any oncoming news. I also like to kind of validate whether or not the moving average is heading in the direction that the signal is going. And since this is sitting pretty flat, I probably wouldn't get into this trade if it's technically above. What I'm looking for is at least a few pips below and the price is already moving into that direction. So since we broke the moving average here, we can kind of see that this becomes the first under at that point. I would then set up my box validation again, and I would look for a good price to get into Nadex with. Okay, so anytime that the price travels over and closes, now if it just travels over, I wouldn't worry about it so much as being a wash. This then wouldn't become the first over or first under. Now, as price goes above, if you had another arrow over here, then yes, that would be another first under. But here is the first over. I'll set up my box validation and we'll go with that process. Now, whether or not you use the first over or first under process, box validation is the same on all of them, and they have a couple different parts, which we'll talk about in the future videos. But for now, to validate what signals to take, you would only take the first over or under. This would be the first over. This would be the second one. I wouldn't take this particular trade. I'm only looking for the first over under. As long as I would say I would take this one because we have a little bit of information here. Over the past several hours, when we get into validation, you'll see that the market value is sort of flattened out, but then starts to climb. So I would take this one. Okay, so in box validation video, we'll show you exactly what I'm talking about what levels to take next. But for now, keep in mind that any price that's below, that has a signal on it when it opens, below the moving average, the first under is a signal and the first over is a signal. I hope that makes sense. And I hope if you're following this, I suggest using this method when you first start out to get yourself a good feel for how price moves. This has a good success rate. It doesn't have a lot of potential to give you a lot of trades. But again, if you're in for the long haul, you don't need a lot of trades. Once you get the consistency of doing this process right, you just simply add volume to get to your goal. And you know what we call that? CVG. Well, I'm Max Farrell. This is DexFX Markets. We'll see you in the next video. And as always, trade well.